Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. In this video I would like to discuss what is known as the Universal Lattice. And what the lattice is, if I may invite you now to seek in your own search, I would invite you to look into the visionary work of the artist known as Alex Gray, which in his imaginary work he himself has portrayed what is known as the Universal Lattice, which in his demonstration within his visionary book of mirrors, where we see now, if I may, I will grab it in a second to show you the progression. Give me 1 second so I may display this. But in the visionary art of Alex Gray, we see the comings of the sacred mirrors, which is this particular book of visionary arts. And when you analyze the particular work of his visions, which you may now see the energetic levels of the body and his ability to draw it at perfect human anatomy. In the Sacred Mirrors book, we progress. Now, if I may sit with you, we progress through the visionary states of consciousness, which you would experience under visionary influenced states, such as the experience of death. And in that particular book, he dives into the states that caused him to enter those particular visions. But ultimately, the true representation of it all is meant to be the states at which we take on, in alternate dimensions, forms of the universe, from chemical to mineral, such as bone, and to then lymphatic or nervous, which both correlate a similar function. And then from the nervous system, you would then, if I may turn this page 1 second. From the nervous system, you would then enter the cardiovascular system and the lymphatic system, the oil system of the body, which are different existences or levels of intelligence until you achieve the muscular level of existence, which we then see in this particular work is where we find our full, complete self as both man and woman in our experience and physical flesh. But as you dive into the works, and just a fair warning, yes, there is open painting imaging. So if you choose not to look in that particular direction, everybody's eyes are up there. But you will see I'm only going to try to display so much of the page, but then he displays the full human anatomy in each of the particular ways we also form in our colors. And in those colors, we see the definition of the 3 initial, which we can then, through a mixing process, create all other colors of man, which we then enter into the energetic bodies, where you awaken the chakric rhythm of the lungs, and then you awaken then into what would be then where you are now present in your experience of feeling awake within a Taurus-like spaceship. In this particular state, you are the pillar that connects and holds reality. And what reality is in that particular state is the spiritual energy system, that which makes the universal mind lattice. And if I may display it to you now, the universal mind lattice is of this particular structure, and it is a pillar that separates heaven from earth. And this is the structure represented in many different manifestations of religion, whether it be through mythology, through titans such as Atlas, or mythical beings or gods of wisdom, or ascensions through dimensions of existence, resulting in ultimately the experience of what is known as Christ. And through thine own consciousness, shining, void, and inseparable from the great body of radiance, hath no birth nor death, and is the immutable, boundless light, as said by the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And in this particular teaching, you begin to see that there is actually a very deep-rooted experience in higher levels of experiencing consciousness, resulting in visionary states, also known as altered states of consciousness. And the understanding of altered states of consciousness, we must now realize it is a fine line. One slippery step and you are off the bandwagon. And so, as an individual seeking to enter an idea of seeing or interfering, infering inside yourself these visionary states, which, as you can feel in this video, if you watch, you can actually perceive the things that I discuss presented before yourself, but in the perspective I can generate within your mind regarding that particular subject, you can create forms of not just memory therapy, but genuine human consciousness therapy in order to relearn everything we know since the beginning of time. If information is continuously beyond ourselves, you are constantly walking through that information. All you have to do is simply learn to grasp it and manifest it. In the idea of grabbing a thought, you can actively express that emotion or the hold chat bubble, you could say. And through this particular thought process, this light bulb, you can create new ideas and ways of changing life, not just for yourself, but for everyone. And in the expression of art is the expression of interpreting the self. every piece of art is an interpretation of self. And if literature is an interpretation of self, telling a story, then in order to understand the fundamental truth behind religious text, is you must read it from the perspective of being the particular self. Because that is the experience that is meant to awaken in your understanding. It is not meant to be purely read from a physical process if it is meant to explain a spiritual pillar to uphold your faith. But in the physical process, you can actively channel a spiritual process, which is the mental interpretation of your internal world based on your external stimulus. And the internal world is the spiritual experience. We see the archetypes of time written within the biblical tale then manifest themselves in every individual division of life known as each individual human. And at any particular time, the archetype of time can switch which character you are meant to be at the particular time of that era within the biblical tale that repeats itself in the eras of time, because it is the cyclical pattern that repeats itself. The test that meant to become God, and the return, and then the rebirth, where we begin again to return to the discovery of another return, and another return, and another return. And in this cyclical pattern, we see the rise of different cultures of gods, which are all the same person, the same being, the same archetype. They are simply just a different truth to the same story, which religion has separated our understanding of the mind if we do not look at all religion as one truth rather than one religion as all truth. In understanding spirituality, we see the inception, if you wish, diving into the power at which your mind can alter your perception of time and space. Because in the mind is a fusion type reactor, an imploding system and an exploding system, or through this echolocation, in your perception of your experience of time and space, you can actively generate momentum in the imploding or intaking of information present within space and time. That when you process it internally in your internal vision known as imagination, in that particular internal state, you can actively view all of time and space. And this is where you can create and be a creator. Through your imagination, you can channel the energy of the creator in order to be able to express it to the world at any point in time. In order to drive a particular point, this is known as a critical strike, where I give momentum to something that doesn't have the same level of potential, which is just a sentence, but in giving it a deeper perspective, it gains a harder force when you listen to it. And this power is another power we have as humans. The power to influence each other, which as a human being, you are the average of the 7 closest people you have in your life. And so, what does that say about your life? I'll leave you to reflect on that. Thank you.